You know, there's this fascinating paradox you often see, maybe you've noticed it. In almost any confrontation, the calmest person, they're usually the most dangerous one in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Think about someone like Miyamoto Musashi, legendary Japanese swordsman.
Absolutely
His
legendary.
record, 60 consecutive duel victories. 60. Many of them to the death. It's not just impressive, it's almost hard to wrap your head around what was his secret. Because it clearly wasn't just about sword skills.
No, definitely not just physical technique.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into Musashi's, well, his systematic approach to emotional control. This is what let him consistently overcome opponents, even guys who, on paper, might have seemed stronger or faster.
Right.
And the really surprising thing, how incredibly relevant his methods are for you right now. In navigating, the conflicts we all face, a tense meeting, a difficult conversation with family, that sort of thing.
It really is surprising.
Our mission today is to unpack Musashi's 4 core principles for, let's call it, unshakable calm. And these aren't just like dusty old techniques from some ancient warrior manual.
Not all.
They genuinely offer a kind of shortcut to clearer thinking, to purposeful action, no matter what kind of challenge you're facing.
And it's so important to understand this isn't just, a history lesson about martial arts.
Right.
Musashi, centuries ago, somehow tapped into these really fundamental truths about human psychology, about how our minds, our bodies react under intense pressure.
Yeah.
And what's truly amazing is that modern science, neuroscience, psychology, it's now confirming these very insights unequivocally. Brain scans, clinical studies, the whole deal.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that.
Yeah.
The very first principle Musashi mastered, emotional distance. We've all been there, right? Someone pushes your buttons, they raise their voice, maybe challenge you, and boom. Instantly, your body just floods with stress hormones.
The cortisol, the adrenaline.
Exactly. Heart pounds, muscles get tight, and you're thinking. It narrows right down. You don't just feel angry or defensive anymore.
No.
You become the anger. Everything you say, everything you do, suddenly it's all serving that emotion. It completely hijacks whatever your actual goal was.
Yeah.
That's the trap. And it's so easy to fall into.
That is precisely it. And Musashi's genius, really, was seeing that the true key to winning wasn't just being better with the sword. It was the ability to step outside the emotional storm.
Just outside it.
Yeah. He actually described it as watching confrontation as if from above. Like you're seeing clouds pass by, but you're not in the storm yourself.
Okay.
The shift is tiny, but it's incredibly powerful. Instead of thinking, I am angry, you consciously, deliberately tell yourself, I notice I'm feeling anger.
Okay.
That little bit of space you create between you, the observer, and the feeling itself, that makes all the difference. It lets you respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting blindly.
And he didn't just, think about this. He lived it. He proved it. Look at his most famous duel, the one against Sasaki Kojiro.
Right. The demon of the Western provinces.
That's the one. Musashi famously showed up super late, deliberately late.
Hours late.
Knowing it would infuriate Kojiro, who was already, waiting and probably getting pretty worked up.
Absolutely. Kojiro was consumed by impatience, by anger.
But Musashi, he kept that critical separation. He stayed apart from his own emotions, even the tension of the situation. It let him see clearly, observe Kojiro's state, and choose his moves deliberately, not reactively.
That separation is absolutely critical, and modern research. It confirms Musashi's insight perfectly. Brain scans, fMRI studies, they show that when people actually label their emotions...
Label them, put a name to them.
Exactly. When you say to yourself, okay, I notice I'm feeling frustration, instead of just being lost in I am frustrated, it actually activates your prefrontal cortex.
The thinking part of the brain.
The executive control center, yeah.
Right.
Your rational thought, planning, impulse control. And here's the magic bit. Activating the prefrontal cortex sends signals that dampen down the amygdala.
The brain's alarm bell.
Precisely. It's like the CEO telling the hyperactive security guard, okay, stand down, I've got this. It calms the emotional storm. It's why therapists, often teach clients this exact technique. Naming the feeling reduces its power.
Wow. Okay, so here's a really powerful technique you can use literally right now. The next time a strong emotion pops up, frustration in traffic, annoyance in a meeting, whatever, just try saying silently to yourself, I notice I'm feeling, and name the emotion.
Just that simple internal statement.
Yeah, it creates that tiny but crucial bit of emotional space.
Okay.
So you've created that emotional distance. You're observing the feeling, not drowning in it. What's next? Did Musashi just wait and react? or did he prepare for what might happen?
Ah, good question. That leads perfectly into his second principle, anticipatory awareness, or as he called it, foreknowledge. Basically, the ability to sense what's likely coming before it actually happens.
Foreknowledge. Okay, that sounds a bit like mind reading. Is that what he meant?
Huh. No, not quite mind reading. It's much more grounded than that. It's really about understanding human patterns.
Patterns.
Yeah. Think about it. When someone gets really angry or feels scared or threatened, their range of possible responses actually narrows down quite a bit. They tend to follow predictable paths.
Okay, I see.
Musashi studied these patterns obsessively. It's like a grandmaster chess player. They aren't guessing the opponent's next move randomly.
Right.
They see 5, 10 moves ahead because they recognize thousands of established patterns and the likely responses to those patterns.
So it's pattern recognition in human behavior under pressure.
Exactly. And there's a huge physiological benefit to this too. When a threat or a confrontation hits you completely out of the blue, your body dumps a massive flood of stress hormones all at once. That's that overwhelming panic, fight or flight feeling.
Yeah, the deer in headlights thing.
Right, but if you anticipate a potential challenge, even vaguely, your brain prepares differently. It releases smaller, more controlled amounts of those same hormones, enough to sharpen your focus, quicken your reflexes, but without clouding your judgment, you stay clearer.
And Musashi really practiced this, didn't he? He studied his opponents meticulously before duels.
Oh, absolutely. He'd learn everything he could. Their favorite moves, sure, but also their temperament. How did they handle pressure? What were their little tells, their quirks?
Like before the Kujiro duel again. The story goes, he carved a wooden sword on the boat ride over.
That's right. And crucially, he carved it just slightly longer than Kujiro's own famous longsword, the drying pole.
Why?
Because he'd anticipated Kujiro's style, his reach, his likely opening moves. He knew that tiny bit of extra length would give him a critical advantage in that specific encounter. That's foreknowledge in action.
Wow. Yeah.
And you see this exact principle used today in really high-stakes situations. Think about experienced FBI hostage negotiators. They spend a lot of time profiling the person they're dealing with, analyzing past behavior, psychological state, triggers, trying to predict likely reactions.
And to know what might set them off or calm them down.
Precisely. That foreknowledge lets the negotiator stay incredibly calm when everything around them is chaotic. It allows them to choose words and tactics strategically to de-escalate, not inflame. They turn a potentially explosive emotional mess into a more predictable situation they can navigate.
Okay, so making it practical for you listening. Yeah. Before you go into, say, a potentially difficult conversation or meeting, try this. Take just 30 seconds. Ask yourself 3 quick questions. 1, what's the other person's likely emotional state going into this? 2, what do they really want out of this interaction underneath it all? And 3, what are maybe the 3 most likely ways they might react negatively?
Just running through those possibilities.
Yeah. It's a simple exercise, but it trains your brain to start seeing those patterns, and it dramatically reduces the chance of being blindsided by an emotional reaction. You're prepared.
All right, so we have emotional distance, creating that space. We have anticipatory awareness, knowing what's likely coming. But Musashi identified a third piece, didn't he? Something crucial for staying calm right in the heat of the moment.
He did, and it's something we often overlook, but it's fundamental: strategic breathing.
Breathing, okay.
Musashi observed his opponents closely. He noticed that the very first sign of fear or rising anger in a swordsman was often a change in their breath.
How so?
It would become shallow, rapid, maybe uneven, held high in the chest.
Yeah.
He was absolutely convinced that if you could master your breath, you could master your mind, especially under pressure.
That makes sense.
And it's a direct two-way street. We know this physiologically now. When you're calm and relaxed, how do you breathe?
Slow, deep from the belly, usually.
Exactly. And when you're scared, startled, angry.
Fast, shallow, up in the chest. Right. Fast and shallow. But here's the crucial part Musashi understood intuitively. This connection works both ways. Meaning you can deliberately change how you breathe to directly influence how you feel. It's not just a reflection of your state, it's a control mechanism.
How does that work physiologically?
It ties directly to your nervous system. Fast, shallow breathing. That activates your sympathetic nervous system.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight gets you ramped up, ready for danger. Slow, deep, controlled breathing, especially with a longer exhale, that activates your parasympathetic nervous system.
Rest and digest. The calming system.
What calming system? One triggers alarm bells, the other signals safety and calm. By controlling your breath, you're literally telling your nervous system which mode to be in.
And Musashi had a specific technique for this, a pattern he used.
He did. Especially for critical moments, like right before engaging or during a pause in combat. It was a very simple, controlled cycle.
What was it?
He'd inhale steadily through his nose for about 4 counts, hold the breath just briefly at the top, and then exhale slowly and completely through his mouth for about 6 counts.
In for 4, hold out for 6. Longer exhale.
That longer exhale is key. It really emphasizes the parasympathetic activation.
And just one breath like that could make a difference?
What's really quite remarkable, and modern practices like box breathing confirm this, is that even one single deliberate cycle of that kind of 4 in, 6 out breath can create a noticeable shift towards calm.
Wow.
It acts like an immediate physiological reset button. It just brings your nervous system back towards balance pretty quickly.
Okay, so another really practical takeaway for you. The next time you feel tension rising, maybe in an argument, before giving a presentation, reading stressful news, actively use this pattern.
Just take one conscious breath.
Yeah. In through the nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold briefly. And out through the mouth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try it. You will likely feel a difference almost immediately. So we've got creating the emotional space, we've got anticipating what's coming, we've got using the breath to stay physiologically calm. But what ties it all together? How do you actually act effectively from that calm place?
That brings us to the 4th and maybe the most encompassing principle: purposeful action.
Purposeful action. Okay.
Musashi stressed constantly that having a clear, defined purpose in any encounter was far more powerful than raw emotion.
More powerful than anger or fear?
Much more. While his opponents, as we said, often fought driven by anger or pride or fear of losing, Musashi always fought with a specific objective goal in mind. It wasn't just about winning, it was about achieving a particular strategic outcome.
Right.
In his famous book, The Book of 5 Rings, he actually writes something like, a warrior should have no intention of striking first, but instead should remain centered on their ultimate goal.
Centered on the goal, not the immediate provocation.
Exactly. Because having that defined purpose completely changes how a confrontation unfolds. It means you are directing the interaction towards your objective, rather than just getting pulled along by the other person's emotional state or your own reactive impulses. You control the narrative, so to speak.
It makes me think about how arguments spiral out of control so easily. They might start about one specific thing, like who left the dishes out, but 5 minutes later, you're bringing up something from 5 years ago, making personal attacks.
Absolutely. Hurt feelings everywhere.
And that happens precisely because both people have lost sight of any real constructive purpose, right?
Yeah.
Their only goal becomes defending themselves, or maybe even just hurting the other person back. There's no objective anymore.
That's a perfect example. The purpose gets completely hijacked by emotion. So a really powerful technique, drawn straight from Musashi's approach, is this. Before you enter any potentially difficult situation or confrontation, take a moment. Define your true objective.
True objective.
Yeah, ask yourself, what outcome here would actually serve my long-term goals or values? Not just winning the argument, but what really matters. Write it down if you need to. Make it one clear sentence.
Okay.
Then keep that purpose right at the front of your mind. During the conversation, if you feel emotions starting to flare up, if things get heated, silently repeat that purpose sentence to yourself.
Like an anchor.
Exactly. It acts as an anchor for your attention. It pulls you back from the emotional tide and keeps you focused on what you're actually trying to achieve.
That's really useful.
And just to clarify, purposeful action doesn't mean you suppress or ignore your emotions, not at all.
Right, yeah.
It means your emotions serve your purpose, rather than your purpose getting derailed by your emotions. It's the skillful integration of everything we've talked about. It's the culmination.
Okay, so just to quickly recap the 4 principles from Musashi that build this unshakable calm. First, emotional distance, creating that space between you and the feeling.
The observer self. Second, anticipatory awareness, or foreknowledge understanding patterns to know what's likely coming.
Reducing surprise, increasing preparedness.
Third, strategic breathing, using the breath, like that 4 in, 6 out pattern, to manage your physiological state.
Directly calming the nervous system.
And finally, purposeful action, having a clear objective that guides your behavior, keeping you anchored even when things get tough.
Bringing it all together towards a meaningful outcome. They really do build on each other beautifully.
They do.
And you know, if we kind of zoom out for a second, connect this to the bigger picture. These techniques Musashi mastered centuries ago, they tap into some really deep philosophical currents.
Like what?
Well, think about emotional distance. That's very close to the Buddhist concept of non-attachment, right? Not being swept away by fleeting thoughts and feelings.
Okay, yeah.
Anticipatory awareness helps you transcend that narrow, often fearful focus just on the immediate moment. Strategic breathing lets you directly experience the impermanence of even intense emotional states. They rise, but they also fall, especially when you guide them. And purposeful action. That really aligns with the Taoist idea of wu-wei, which isn't inaction, but rather effortless, effective action that flows naturally because it's aligned with a deeper purpose, unburdened by internal friction and reactivity.
Wow. So these aren't just combat tactics. They're almost like principles for living wisely.
In many ways, yes.
And the relevance today. It's almost staggering when you think about it. We live in an age that feels like constant confrontation, doesn't it?
It really does.
Social media algorithms literally profit from provoking us. Our political discourse thrives on division. Even just daily life seems more stressful, more pressure-filled. We probably face more potential small C confrontations in a day than Musashi did in a month.
That's likely true.
And here's the great irony. We arguably need this kind of emotional control, this calm clarity, more than ever before in human history.
Absolutely.
But we seem to practice it less and less. People react instantly. Minor disagreements explode. We're constantly triggered.
We're marinated in reactivity. Yeah. So the person who can maintain that Musashi-like calm in this environment, they don't just, win arguments. They access a level of clarity, of effectiveness that most people today just can't reach.
And there's another layer to this mastery, something people rarely talk about.
What's that?
When you develop this level of emotional distance and purposeful awareness, you start to see just how many confrontations are actually completely unnecessary. Meaning, when you stop automatically reacting to every little slight, every disagreement, every perceived challenge, you discover that a huge number of potential conflicts simply dissolve on their own. They needed your reactive energy to exist.
So you just let them go.
You let them go because you see they don't serve your purpose. They aren't worth engaging. The truly powerful person isn't the one who jumps into every fight and wins. It's the one who has the wisdom, the clarity to only engage in the confrontations that genuinely matter, the ones aligned with their purpose.
That's a really profound point. It reframes strength completely.
It does. It's about conservation of energy, clarity of purpose.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. How might your day, or maybe even your whole life, change if you consciously chose to engage only in the confrontations that truly serve your deeper purpose and simply allow the rest to dissolve?